We want to welcome everybody to another edition of Truth Seekers. We ask that you submit your questions to the coaches in segments like today, Coach's Corner Mailbag. And we've touched upon previous shows of how to do that, so I'm not going to give it to you today. However you want to submit it, send it over to us. We'll air it on the show. We will respond to it, and we'll talk through it. We will have an open and honest dialogue about it, as we do every time on Truth Seekers. Coach, anything stuck in your craw today? What's top of mind for you? What is maybe giving you trouble, or you've been thinking about recently, or what are you most focusing on this week for your success?
Success, depending on which category you look at in your life or which area is most important. I think if what's on my mind right now a lot is the vacation have coming up. It's significant.
Aruba, Jamaica. We're going to South Africa. Where are we going?
And Antigua.
Okay, I was kind of kidding, but that's awesome.
But yeah, it's a very significant opportunity to see my family flying in from England, because that's the only place they can. Well, it's not the only place they can go to, but that's the only place we could make work. They can't come to the US right now. So it's a significant event. I haven't seen my parents for the last 2 years. So there's a lot of planning going along around that. And what I realized at the end of last week was the power of vacation in a different way than I've realized before. The resistance around vacation I've had before, and certainly like people that are in a place where they're high achievers, resistance around vacation because it means they can't work as hard, which means like they probably not doing as much as they could, right? And so that's that old school work harder then work harder mentality. So there's always going to be some of that shows up as well. But what I realized was that there's some resistance around it because it actually forces you to up your standard a little bit. Because if you're taking, right, it doesn't really apply if you're taking 1 or 2 days, but if you're taking a week off, you have to make sure that like the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. It actually is pushed me to get things done quicker in the last couple of weeks in preparation. So some of the resistance I've felt in the past is that actually if I have a vacation coming up, which means I've got to get things done quicker, because I've noticed that I've got things upcoming, deliveries for clients, things I've got to help people with, things I've committed to. I know that I can always push it a little bit if I need be. I've got a buffer, but because the time is defined, it's actually pushed me to be tighter on it and deliver more quicker time. There's actually another benefit to vacations. So if you can think about like having more time together, so there's actually perhaps it's another compound interest function. Because if I take, it's only a week, but if I took those 5 days off as like a 4-day weekend for a few weeks in a row, I'm not going to get the same impact from upping the standard in my business or from actually having enjoyment for the vacation time.
So take more vacations is the lesson. One a month.
Be in. Like if you're in, be in. If you're working, work. If you're on vacation, be on vacation. And obviously that becomes easier the longer you take them for.
Yeah, think of back in my college years, there was I became privy to a famous statistic that athletes in season actually have a higher GPA than when they're out of season. And I think it's a similar point, right? It's when you know that there's no time to slack off, or you have to crunch more of your productivity into less time, then you are more efficient. It forces you to be better, to be more resourceful. So I think that's kind of what you're saying with vacation, right? So if you have a full week that you can't provide value for your clients, or you have to address certain things, or you have other obligations, you have to fit those in other times of the week. So say you have a 10-hour day, and of those 10 hours, normally you're working 8 of them, or 7. All of a sudden you're working 8 or 9 or 10 to squeeze that in. And you can do it. It's not something that you're not capable of. It's just funny how it works with our mindset. We think we have to have that space in between, or whatever it might be. But then when we have to rise to the occasion, we're there. and we execute, and it's all good. It's all fine. It actually elevates our productivity and our status level with our clients and all our other obligations too.
Yeah. If you're looking at your calendar on a Monday, looking at your week set out, what are my musts this week on top of my deliveries that already confirmed that are part of what's scheduled in my calendar? You might set those things out and say, okay, like here's my must this week. And then you might get to Friday and go, actually realize that number 4 out of 5 wasn't really a must. I'll do that Monday. But if you know that following week you're off, it then becomes, it has to wait until Monday week. And that's probably not acceptable. And so that will force you to be more, like to your point, more efficient that week.
Interesting point. And you triggered something else for me is, I think we're talking about simple secrets of the successful, like the success leaves clues. That's what people do, is identify in the beginning of the week what's most important. Because that's the risk of people, I think, of people who are most capable too. People who can spread themselves too thin often do. Like you have to find that balance, right? You have to find the balance with where you are and what you can handle, because we can handle a lot. High achievers can handle a lot.
Yeah.
But what's too much? Where's that line? And that's just an interesting topic for to think about.
Because it then goes back the other way, right? Because you're like, oh well, that's too much. Hang on, I'm being lazy. And that is the continuous game of life, I think. But I've been playing that game for a long time. Most of the time I've been playing it, didn't know I was playing it. Then I realized I was playing it. And it's about giving the grace and compassion to know that it's all right, both sides, and give yourself the ability to swing back when you need to. And again, that's the reason why you need to have a coach and people around you in your life to give you that reflection. Because the scary thing is that you could get too far into one side and not see it, or get so deep in one side that it takes a long time for you to dig yourself out once you do see it.
Yeah, we have a question from our mailbag that I want to read to you now that's related to this topic, and I'm going to relate it even more. So it's from Dennis, and he wanted to know what's the biggest challenge you've overcome in your career. And I'm going to layer on top of that and just ask you to relate that to what we're talking about. Do you remember when you were out of balance, or when you stretched yourself too thin, or maybe the last vacation that you took where, before you came to these realizations? What was your biggest challenge to overcome, and how did you overcome that?
Gosh, like shout out to Dennis. So many, but the one that jumps out to me, the one consequence was an extension of what we talked about earlier, but then one place I remember being back in my corporate days. I remember being in a place where I was running 4 teams. It wasn't too many people, it was like 25 people. And these teams were related, that they were in the same rough business area, but what they functionality didn't really cross over. And I didn't have strong supervisors in their team. So I was playing the leadership role and the manager type role in those teams. And I was getting to grips with what was going on. I remember one day I was in a meeting room, running from one meeting to then a phone meeting, and looking at my calendar, and I was literally back to back from 8 until 5 of meetings. And that was the mentality of like, don't worry, I got it, give me more. Because I saw people around me that were just kind of a lot older than me and were visibly on to the other side. So my strength was, don't worry, I'll take it, I got it, I'm going to outperform everyone else here. So on the surface, that seemed okay, but also completely unsustainable. And I didn't see it coming. And so I got to the point where it's just like, I had 24,000 emails in my inbox, and I had meetings back to back to back for a day. And I would get back to my desk and say, it's 5 o'clock now, I start my work for the day. Completely unsustainable. So the fix for that was just to get rid of it all. Right, which is also impactful, right? Because then I've got to get rid of it or start again, like literally get rid of all the emails, start again, like decline all these meetings. And so all the people that are seeing that in the little tiny windows of seeing that, there's an impact to reputation, or potentially at least. So unwinding it was impactful as well. So seeing that going into it and understanding what like to play to the long-term game and see it. That was a big challenge for me. The difference in that was a big challenge. And then the year preceding that, the year after that was powerful for me, because the ask that I got given and the realization that I made was, I have all of these things that are going on, I can only impact a couple of things that really make a difference. So I just chose 3 things over the entire year 3 things. So at the beginning of the year, I said, these are the 3 things I'm going to do this year. And at the end of the year and the mid-year, came in and reflected on those 3 things. At the end of the year, gave my presentation in front of my bosses. I was like, at the beginning of the year, you told me these are the things I laid out, got very specific on it. We checked in, and this is the result, and there's very specific things. So they can see it through. Because if I haven't got my head around what it is, how can I expect them to as well? Even if they're my bosses. Like, remember, think about it. If you guys right now are thinking about your bosses and that your bosses know everything about everything, they don't. They're just trying to figure it out as well. And they don't know what you're doing. They're trying to figure out what they're doing. So get precise. So that was the lesson for me. And the way that reflected was when I did take vacation, and that was an industry where you had to take vacation as well. So that was always built in. Taking 2 weeks vacation, it would take me to the second day of the second week to actually go, just so much built up and couldn't see where I needed to be unwound.
And so I'm guessing your head is on a swivel after that point, having gone through that, right? Knowing what not to do, or what maybe the opposite of a best practice is, to where, there's the balance between getting overwhelmed with having the schedule filled through 5 o'clock and starting your day at 5 o'clock. And then, focusing on 3 things throughout the year. Maybe there's somewhere in between. And I'm sure that you have triggers that alert you that something is getting out of whack. So maybe that's the takeaway for me, is that just being alert, being aware, constantly checking in with when it's getting out of balance. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Because by the time you figure it out, it's too late. If you just wait for there's inbuilt things in ourselves, physiological things that help us. If we wait too long, we'll get stressed. Like, we physically get sick. We'll get ill somehow. It's the instinct to drink. Once you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. And so the game to play is be intentional about drinking water up front, so you don't get to that point. You haven't got to recover from it. So you're always in the sweet spot. So same thing for any level of stress. Like, are you feeling good? What is it? And coach, you're great at practicing these things, I think, anyway, in terms of the gratitude and the journaling and sitting there and staying in that space and the meditation. And so that's I think that some of the tools that are really out there for us to use to get in touch to how we really feel, because it's so easy just to blink and the week and the month and the year go by.
Yeah, I must see the body as like the catch-all, right? The body's going to tell us what it is, but we want to beat the body to it, and we can do that through being aware and intelligent of what's going on around us. So, Coach, intriguing conversation today. Thank you so much. We'll see you on next week's edition of Truth Seekers.